Our next story involves a voice over IP company and their software and an incident that occurred to them. However, prior to discussing that, I want to be public about I am the owner of a competitor software, competitor platform called OIT VoIP. The coverage we're going to do with our guests and Tony and I talking about the subject is going to be as completely unbiased as humanly possible. But I do feel it's fair to our audience to disclose I do own a VoIP company. It gives me a breadth of experience, but it also can lead to some unintentional biases when talking about a competitor. So we wanted to be clear about that, let you know up front out of respect to our audience. In our security story, the story that's taking the MSP world by storm, 3CX VoIP desktop application possibly compromised with command and control messages going out to unknown parties. On March 22nd, the first alerts went out. SentinelOne noticed, started alerting to the 3CX desktop application for Windows and Mac, and it was flagged a false alert. On March 29th, it happened again, and they also deemed it a false alert. This was from the SentinelOne vigilance team. However, upon closer inspection by CrowdStrike, by Huntress, by Sophos, and many other security researchers, it was actually found it did include suspicious software that was doing calls out to unknown websites. We're showing the Huntress blog article because Huntress always comes with a breadth of information. And joining us to talk about this from the Huntress side is Sharon Martin at Huntress. How you doing, Sharon?
Well, definitely have a lot of caffeine in my blood right now. We had a really long night last night.
I know I was messaging you and Andrew and others all day yesterday. I think your message and my message last night was somewhere. My last message from you was like 1 a.m. I started back up at like 4 and you were still responding. And John Hammond and others were in the Slack still responding. But this is like standard fare for you guys when like there's something major that happens. It's kind of like Avengers assemble on the Huntress side and you all start jumping in and doing what you can, right?
That's correct. Though some events end up having more response than others. Essentially, we're working at it all night long if we're still finding new information and we need to get information out to others. So one of the big things was we had a lot of folks asking us yesterday, like, hey, when's Huntress going to put out more information? And we're like, hey, we actually want to make sure that we do an in-depth analysis before we just start putting out blog posts, because our whole point is we need to provide information to the community where, we're not just going to do a blog post that everybody else has already done.
Sharon, can I I just want to, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. Sharon, Overall Ninja, that is your official name from the last show. I want to point this out to the uneducated, the uninitiated. What the heck is going on? Like, can you tell me about this? I am not in that particular industry. So tell those that are out there right now listening, saying, "What? I don't understand what's happening." I understand the overview from Ray, but can you kind of add a little bit more light on that?
Yeah, no, I can do my best. And actually, I wasn't really familiar with this application before all of this hit. So in a lot of places, folks use VoIP for communication versus your traditional phone. It saves money. It's related to your computer. You don't have to have a separate phone line. And 3CX is a very popular phone management system in use. Well, as it turns out, the 3CX application that, seemed to be legitimate to users is actually doing some things that are not so legitimate. And so it's calling back to things that aren't under 3CX's control, picking up more stages, loading a little extra malware in the background. And theoretically, this is associated with North Korea. I say all this and, obviously Huntress doesn't do attribution. But it's clear that there has been a supply chain compromise, because it's not like 3CX went and built the vulnerability in their application. They released their app as normal, and then turns out bad things are happening.
So here's my question. How many people are affected?
I mean, it depends on how you number it, right? 3CX themselves, they say they have over 600,000 customers, but that's customers. It doesn't number the end users. And again, these are the end users who are actually affected, who are running the app. So I don't really know how large that number is. Even within Huntress, we found a significant number of systems running the 3CX app, and a very good percentage of them had hashes that were correlated to versions that were then displaying the suspicious behavior.
So to add a little clarity here, Ray, you know a little bit about VoIP. You have extensive experience. So I just want to really position the weight behind what you say in this, because I think you should be spearheading this particular conversation. I'm actually going to pull back, and you and the Ninja, overall Ninja, are going to talk about this and how it affects others. So Ray, why don't you go forward with this? And everyone keep their ears open.
Yeah, absolutely. I have 20 plus years working in VoIP in different platforms besides operating my own platform. And my CCIE is CCIE Voice. I got in 2003. So got a little bit of experience building these kind of networks. For those that, and you're absolutely right, we should go over this high level. 3CX is a voice over IP PBX platform, and IPBX that a lot of MSPs either self-host or they host up in the cloud. There's a free version, makes it very, very popular, runs on Windows, which MSPs are used to. So just high level, it's a very easily installable application and server that makes a lot of things easy, honestly. It's a great piece of software. I've been 3CX Advanced certified since like V8, V9, something like that, and every iteration since. And the application we're talking about, because 3CX has multiple methods of communication, this is not affecting desk phones or any IP phones that are registering. This is not affecting their PWA app or progressive web app that they actually prefer to use. This is affecting the installable desktop app for Windows and Mac, which is an Electron-based app which installs from the local 3CX instance using their MSI. And then it includes some configuration stuff that'll configure for the end user. We want to be clear about that because there's a lot that's been going on the last 48 hours, or not even 24 hours. There's been a lot of confusion. Sharon, do you have off the top of your head the version numbers? If not, I can grab them. But it's worth noting.
So the version numbers that we have are 18.12.407 and 18.12.416 for Windows. And then there's also 18.12.402, which is listed for Mac. But I've seen more information coming in that there might be an additional version. But that seems to be changing, because initially when we were aware of it, we thought it was just the version that was signed on March 13th, which was the 18.12.416. And then more information came to light that some older versions were affected. And that, again, this is still evolving.
It is, and I want to bring to light, Sophos gave a lot of information, as did CrowdStrike. Go to the Huntress blog because it has all the links, and we'll include in the show notes below. Sophos was also mentioning Mac version 18.11.12.13. The point of it is we don't have all the information. Like at this point, if you're on version 18 of 3CX, standard, most experts at this point are just saying uninstall the app. Just get it off your system. Use PWA. I know that's not really the answer to any kind of incident response, but right now it kind of seems to be the only thing you can really do, right?
Unfortunately, yes, because it gets more complex the more you look at it. Because of the 7-day essentially delay, that before it becomes active, adds additional malware stages. Some folks may not even be affected or have received the additional stages of the malware yet. And then fast forward, when you do, there's a lot of unknowns about the capabilities of all the stages and just, kind of how deep that iceberg goes.
So let's focus on what we do know. What we do know for now, and again, constantly evolving. I can't iterate that enough. We're doing our best not to spread FUD. That is not the case. We want to tell what we know and what we think is possible. But as my understanding now, the application sits on your desktop, does its normal activities, and it's when the auto update service starts, that's when it starts doing these questionable things, right? Reaching out to these other websites. And that happens, it's staggered, but it's so far it's been around the 7-day mark, which is also 322, 329, kind of why it pops up like that. The DLL, the affected DLL is ffmpeg.dll. For those that don't know, will include, and actually ffmpeg just put out a Twitter remark on Thursday saying that this has nothing to do with them. They only release the source code and they release an exe version. Anybody using the DLL will compile it on their own and then distribute it with their software. And ffmpeg is in literally everything. If you have Teams, you have ffmpeg. It is a media converter commonly used to change formats and codecs and waved MP3 and so on and so forth. Super commonplace. But that is not the supply chain issue. It is not ffmpeg. I want to be very clear on that. We've checked that already ad nauseum at like 3 o'clock this morning. But so this ffmpeg, can you give us some of the details on what it's actually doing? I know there was a list of websites it was reaching out to, and there was a payload and an extra item, and they were both signed, right? That's the crazy part. Both applications were actually signed, one by 3CX, one by Microsoft. Can you give us some insight to that?
That's correct. So what we know is it's reaching out to these malicious sites, and then it's grabbing essentially some image type files that have more encoded information in them. This is where, again, it gets shady because this is further on stages, because kind of the first stage is, after the 7 days, it's loading these malicious DLLs that are then following on with more malicious behavior. But the part that we haven't yet seen is what happens in the follow-on phase. And I think it varies on the system. But I know I've heard folks mention, well, there are potentially credential stealing capabilities, there are potentially other monitoring capabilities that could be loaded, but that's where it gets pretty shady. And I don't want to go too much further into that because, again, I can't actually personally confirm any of that multi-stage behavior beyond the initial reachbacks to grab more things.
And that's kind of the weird part about this, right? It's not ransoming. It's not encrypting the local file store. It's not downloading command and control applications. It's not side loading something for network traversal. We don't know the point yet. We don't know like what the end goal of these malicious actors are, and it's weird. What we have been able to confirm, like I said before, the ffmpeg.dll was signed by 3CX. I know there's been going back and forth on the on the where it came from, as well as was a supply chain. It absolutely, I think this does qualify as a supply chain attack. It's just the top tier stops at 3CX, correct?
That's as far as we know right now. But again, even that's evolving. And I know 3CX is really busy right now with incident response, trying to get a handle on the situation. But unfortunately, I don't have further insight into where that investigation is going right now.
And that's part of what makes this so challenging, right? Because normally, it's not always, but when a security event happens, ideally, if it's a large enough player, and I don't want to say large enough because I've seen Huntress help millions of others that are tiny, including myself. But when there's a security incident, Huntress has always been made available, and I know for a fact people at Huntress reached out to a lot of the VoIP players. I talked to Andrew myself and told him, other VoIP players that were using 3CX, but it doesn't seem 3CX was actually working with anybody in the beginning, at least per their forum notes. And again, don't take my word for it. We'll include the link to their forum posts. This has been going on for several days. Go read through it for yourself. Don't take my opinion for it. But in the beginning, they were kind of just dismissing it. And then it was, they said overtly they weren't going to reach out to SentinelOne. Anybody can reach out to them and give them the data. And then, yesterday it wasn't anything. And then finally they did put out a security notice on their 3CX website sometime around 10 or 11 o'clock last night. And we'll have it in the show notes to get as well. And for the people that are wondering, how does it get into my system? I'll give a little bit of background on 3CX. 3CX, the installation of the PBX itself. So they're individual installations of the PBX, and there's a multi-tenant version. Basically what happens when you update the 3CX host instance, it pulls from 3CX repositories into the local store of the 3CX instance. And then any applications for the users, the PWA app, the desktop app, or anything else, they pull their updates from the 3CX local instance. So these 3CX updaters would have been on the 3CX local instance belonging to the MSP or service provider, client, whatever it happens to be. So if you're going to delete, make sure you're deleting across the board. Just want to be sure there. Some people, this is a V18 exclusive thing so far that we know. So if you're on V17, you're safe. If you're on some versions of V18, I don't even know which ones they are. So I'm not going to go into that. CrowdStrike, Sophos, Huntress, and a few others. We're linking all of those below. There's a lot of research to be done. But at least for now, auto updating, leave it off if you've already deleted it. 3CX did come out with a, actually something like 20 minutes ago. We're recording this on Thursday at 3:53 p.m. Did come out about 20 minutes ago with a new version of the desktop app. But again, where we're at today, I'd let the security researchers do their job. I do want to bring up an important point. We worked alongside with Huntress yesterday. Huntress did this on their own. This is not an OIT thing. This is an everybody thing. Simon, can you bring up the post real quick? The amazing people over at Huntress have brought down, there's a link there at the bottom. Huntress is offering a 30-day free trial. It's through the end of April, so it's a little more than 30 days. If you can go install it, if you're not an existing Huntress user, this is for new endpoints that are deployed. You can go and install it. You don't have to be an OIT partner either. This is 100% Huntress. Go download it, install it, just in case, get that second set of eyeballs. Because now Huntress is alerting on it, correct, Sharon? If I'm okay. Microsoft Defender is absolutely reporting on it now. Most of the others at this point, they're catching it. So, but if you can't get that second set of eyeballs, and this is not a sales pitch for Huntress. Huntress does this just out of the goodness of their hearts to protect the community, protect the 99%, right? As is the tagline. So I want to make sure people go out and do that if you're not running Huntress right now. There's really no excuse not to. Sharon, what's next? What's the next step? What should we be paying attention to on our platforms?
Well, 100% continue to pay attention to the vendor pages, right, for 3CX and what their updates are. Because I know we're going to see a lot more information in the coming days. And then I'm hoping that we and other security researchers are going to continue to uncover more functionalities so we can provide even better information about, well, what does compromise mean? And how common was it that folks got the further stages of the payloads, and what exactly were the functionalities at that point in time?
Yeah, I'm deeply interested in this. This is we report on malware, we report on security incidents. Unfortunately, every episode of Dispatch. This is your second go around with us, and we greatly appreciate your experience and your knowledge on these subjects. But this is the first one I see that's like, we're waiting to see what actually happens with it. It's such a weird, oddball event. So it makes it more interesting, in my opinion. Sharon, thank you so much. Sharon Martin, Threat Ops Capability Champion over at Huntress. Her LinkedIn is going to be below, so you can reach out, say hello. Sharon, thank you. I can't thank you enough for everything you and the rest of the
Thanks for having me on again. John Hammond is the real guy here with the cool, super awesome info. So I feel like I'm just a stand-in, but
No, you're a champion on your own. And actually, we will call out John Hammond already made a video about this, as did Tom Lawrence, both good friends of ours, good friends of the show. We'll link it below. This is one of those cases where you can't get enough information. Just soak it all in as much as you can. All of that's below, and then we'll be in touch on the next one. You have a great one, Sharon.
You too. Hopefully it's a while before the next one.
Yeah. Thanks, Sharon. Appreciate it.
This This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.